Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Korea once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. Now, the last reviews I did of this brewery's beers came back in 2019 when I actually visited Korea, and they were really interesting actually, but from what I've heard, this brewery has gotten even better over the years, and if you were to ask people about this brewery in Korea, they would probably describe these guys as having been one of the really pioneering brewers in the evolution of the Korean craft beer scene. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases here in Hong Kong. It's a style that I haven't tried from this brewery before, but one that I've heard they're pretty good at these days, and it's also a very popular style at the moment actually. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to a little place called Dong Ho-cheong, which is a very small village in the northern part of Jeju Island, just off the southeast coast of mainland Korea, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Magpie Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Evil Eyes. It comes in at 7% ABV, and Magpie are describing this one as a double IPA. Now I know this one is a hazy IPA, but what I would say is that 7% is a little bit low to be calling the beer a double IPA. For me, this would be a single IPA. For, I think for most people 8% is where you would start calling beers a double IPA. 7.5% at the absolute least, at the absolute lowest ABV, I would say. But nonetheless, as I say, it's 7% hazy IPA, this one, and I've heard very good things about it. This is one that I picked up at the Wine Rack branch in Tsim Sha Tsui here in Hong Kong. Big shout out to Millie, of course, who I was chatting to when I bought this beer, and she said she quite liked this one actually. She loves her IPAs. So yeah, this should make for an interesting review, this one. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you do want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Magpie Brewing Company before, and hopefully we can add some more to that list in the near future. I don't intend to leave it 5 years before I review another one of their beers again, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Korean playlist along with a number of other things, and that's being added to fairly regularly at the moment because we are getting good access to Korean beers here in Hong Kong. But make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Magpie Brewing Company again then. So Magpie Brewing Company were founded back in 2011 when the Korean craft beer scene was just kind of getting off the ground, and they were founded in Seoul by 3 friends. This was Eric Moynihan, Tiffany Needham, and Jason Lindley. So all 3 came to Korea as English teachers, and Moynihan is from Canada while the others are from the US. But apparently Eric and Jason wanted to develop a DIY lifestyle, and they've done various things like cheese making, and they also owned a restaurant called Scout. But around 2006 or 2007, Jason got into home brewing, and then the 3 guys got really deep into this hobby. But they apparently also have a TV show that's called Semi-Permanent, which looks into the lives of fellow expats in Korea, and this was on the channel Arirang. But they own the building in which the brewery is now located. But in 2012 they opened up their first brewing space in Gyeongridan in Seoul with a pale ale. And this was their first beer, and also their porter came out quite soon after that, and they've just continually expanded their brewing operations ever since then. But for a while they'd been contract brewing their beers at a few places around Korea. This was brewed, their beers were brewed at the Table, Seven Broy and Ka Brew as well to keep up with demand. But later though, in 2014, through the establishment of a partnership with Ariro Gallery, they opened up a new bar in the Tapdong area of Jeju City, and this started the shift of of their focus to Jeju Island. So in 2016, they opened up their new brewery in an old tangerine warehouse in the tiny village of Donghocheong in the northern part of the island. And in addition to this, they've also got their brew shop bar in the Yongsan area of Itaewon district in Seoul, and previously they also had one in Hongdae as well. But they've got their Tapdong bar in Jeju City as well, that's still there. They offer beer tastings, brewery tours and home brewing classes in the different locations from what I understand, and of course though your main brewery tour will be at the location in Donghocheong village. But over the years they've continued to expand their brewing operations. They do quite a few different, it's mainly ales they're brewing actually these days. They've got a Kulsch, they've got quite a few different IPAs from what I've seen, and yeah, they've been experimenting a little bit with sour beers in recent times. But as of May 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 110 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Magpie Brewing Company for the moment. The only other thing we should really add is that the beer is named, or the brewery is named after the magpie bird, which is widely seen as a symbol of good luck in Korea, or a bringer of good news was the quote that I saw on the website. But yeah, if you want to learn a little bit more about Magpie Brewing Company, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just wipe the can off because it's sweating a little bit in the warmth here of Hong Kong. But yeah, this looks pretty nice. It does tell you a wee bit about the beer on the side here, but obviously that is all written in Hangul, which I probably could make an attempt at reading, but I wouldn't have any clue what it means. I do need to brush up on my Korean a little bit, although I didn't know that much in the first place. But you can see plain silver top on the can there. This one is a half litre incidentally. I think I paid 80 Hong Kong dollars for this can, which is about £8 sterling, €9, maybe $10 American. Beer is of course a little bit more expensive here in Asia because pretty much all of the ingredients are imported from Australia, the US or Europe. But yeah, like we said, this one is called Evil Eyes, 7% ABV. They're describing it as a double IPA. I know that it's a hazy IPA, but yeah, I would say it's a single, to be honest with you. But you can see the magpie symbol just at the top of the can there, which I think is really nice. That hasn't changed since I first encountered the magpie beers back in 2019. But let's get it out into the glass and see how we get on. I'm very curious about this actually. This should be very, very nice. We'll sugar it up a little bit because I'm sure there will be some sediment in this. So yeah, I think we've got about 80% of the beer out of the can. We'll put it around there. 80% of the beer out of the can and into the glass for this bit. But as you can see, when we poured the beer, it came out with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head there. You can see it's actually got quite a few medium-sized bubbles in this one. It's not the foamiest of heads that you're going to see. It is more kind of like bubbly and soapy and things, but that's fading away to a very thin foamy layer quite quickly actually. But yeah, in terms of the colour of this beer, this has got a lovely rich sort of mango juice colour to it. I always like comparing New England hazies to different kinds of fruit juices. That's just what their appearance really reminds me of. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour of it as well, but when it comes to IPAs you don't often have to care about that, to be honest with you. The level of haze in this one for a 7%er is kind of about right. I have seen soupier and gloopier 7% hazies, but yeah, the level of haze in these beers depends on oat content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, so just bear that in mind. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, a few little bubbles going up toward the surface of the beer, but all in all it looks pretty nice, and this is pretty much what you would expect appearance-wise for a modern IPA. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. I'm very, very curious about this actually, because it's been so long since we've had one of their beers. Oh, right. This is quite interesting. I'm going to say straight away, it comes across as being a little bit more barley malt leaning. and a little bit yeasty as well. So as I've said on the channel many a time before, when it comes to New England hazies, there's 6 different components in my mind at least to think about when it comes to these beers on the malty and yeasty side of things. So you've got the farmhousey yeasty character, the rye lean and grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a little bit more prominent in American brewed New England IPAs, but you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things as well. So yeah, for me, this beer, you can smell a little bit of the wheat coming out of it, but it's mainly barley malt actually, and a little touch of the yeastiness I'm getting, and it has a little bit of an almost kind of citricy note to it, like there's a little bit of aromatic malt or acidulated malt or something like that in there. That's the first impression I have of this one. So if we sugar it up, for sure, there's a really nice mix of it's a really nice mix of things going on. It's quite a citrusy forward leaning beer, this one, like kind of lemon and limey characters for me. But yeah, it does give you pretty much what you would expect from the style. So let's break it down a wee bit and describe that aroma more in depth. So for me, the backbone of the beer, you've got a lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one. That's the backbone of the beer. There are little elements of kind of woody character in there and wee bits of cracker, but yeah, mainly fresh white bready bread crust. Beyond that, I get some really nice kind of fluffy white bread in this one. But like I say, the more that I smell of this beer, the more I start to get the wheat actually. So yeah, big white bready characters in there. Yeah, big fluffy white bready characters for sure. Then at the back of the nose you get a big bitey, wheaty sort of thing coming out of it. So yeah, big bitey wheaty character. Then you've also got that really nice little bit of oaty creaminess in this one. I don't think there's too much in the way of oats in this one, and as I've always said before, oats are usually a very good indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. It's a little bit crude, but yeah. So essentially, the creamier the oats are in these beers, the fresher the New England IPA is, the drier they are, the older it is. And you can smell a little bit of creaminess in there, but there's also a little bit of dryness. I don't know if it says. It looks like this one might have been canned in, it's either January or March, I'm really not 100% sure. We'll be able to tell a little bit when we taste it, I guess. But yeah, it is fairly fresh, this one, a couple of months, so it still should be in good condition. But yeah, you do get a little bit of oaty note out of this one, but not that much, I would say. I wonder if there's a wee bit of Pilsner malt in this as well, because I can smell a wee bit of that kind of crispness. Like I say, there's a little bit of that acidulated aromatic malt type character to this one, and that kind of is amplified by what I suspect is wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose too. But yeah, all in all, the malty base is quite interesting. There's a little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy character coming out of this one, and a wee bit of like McVitie's digestive biscuit, but not overly much, I would hasten to add. So yeah, the malty character in this was quite interesting, and I'm very curious to see how that's is going to play out in the actual flavour of the beer. So let's focus on the hoppy side of the aroma then. So as I've mentioned on the channel many times before, there are 3 different kinds of hoppings that you can do with IPAs. You've got early addition hopping, which usually takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you a deep, dank aroma, and it's responsible for most of the bitterness in your beer. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. Most IPAs use about a 90-minute wort boil, incidentally. But yeah, that will give you a very bright green component. It's going to be responsible for a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Then you've got the dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's responsible completely for flavour and aroma. And again, it contributes a very bright green component rather than being deep and dank. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of more juicy and fruity and quite bright, whereas West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they have that deeper, danker component to them as well. But yeah, for me, the green component in this one is very bright, which indicates a reliance on late addition and dry hopping for sure. But yeah, I'm curious to know what hops have been used in this. The more that I smell of this one, I start to get a wee bit of a tropical fruit note out of it, whereas in the beginning it was very like lemon, limey, citric leaning, but I think there's a little bit more to this beer than that, and I'm sure we'll pick out a little bit more as my nose adjusts. But on on the hoppy side of things, there's a nice little bit of earthiness in there. At the back of those, maybe a little bit of mosaic. You do get a little touch of herbal character, but yeah, the green component for me is mainly bright floral aromaticity and quite a zesty, kind of grassy character as well. So yeah, some interesting stuff going on in that green component for sure. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, I've described that a little minute ago. But for me, the fruity side of this beer is quite interesting. Like I say, I get more and more tropical fruit out of it the more that I smell of it. I want to say there's a little bit of sharper peach in there, but not too much. I'm getting a lot of like soft apricot, papaya, maybe a little bit of pineapple and things. Could it be a little bit of Idaho 7 in here and a bit of mosaic? Maybe a little touch of Nelson Sauvin as well. I'm getting a wee bit of that maybe. But yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 different hops in this one, just going by the nose. But I think, yeah, there's a little bit of peach, there's a bit of juicy mango, soft apricot, a little bit of pineapple maybe as well. And yeah, the more that I smell of it, I get this kind of oily, white, green, grapey sort of thing, which is usually Nelson Sauvin that gives you that. Hallertau Blanc, of course, is an option. Enigma from Australia is going to give you a little bit of that, along with a wee bit of red currant or something. But yeah, I'm not really getting much in the way of an orangey character out of this. So I think what I said about mosaic earlier on was a bit wrong. I'm getting more of a kind of juicy lime. Motueka would seem a logical choice for this one. I always like playing guess the hops with these beers, so I'd maybe guess like a little bit of Nelson Sauvin, a bit of Motueka, and then something a wee bit more tropical. Actually, Idaho 7 or El Dorado would be the ones that would come to mind most. It doesn't seem like pungent enough or complex enough aroma-wise to be Citra or Galaxy. Or Galaxy is not as complex as Citra for me. But yeah, the aroma in this one is quite interesting. You've got a nice balance between these different fruits. I could sit and play guess the hops with this all day and probably still get. It was easier back in the day when we started the channel because there were less hop varieties. Now it's quite difficult, of course. But aroma-wise, this is pretty damn nice actually. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Evil Eyes, a 7% New England Hazy IPA from Magpie Brewing Company in Donghocheon Village on Jeju Island over in South Korea. Slàinte, skål, cheers, Gambe. Ooh, that's pretty nice. It's really drinkable, actually. Very soft, smooth, but quite wet. New England IPA, this one. Certainly not the thickest and creamiest of examples of this style I've had, and I think that kind of fits in with what I was saying earlier. This one did seem a little bit more kind of barley malt leaning in the aroma than, I think you would have got a little bit more creaminess and wheatiness and stuff out of this one. The wheat was a bit more prominent. It feels like this is one of these ones. It's almost kind of got the vibe of some of the European brewed like session New England IPAs. It's got a little bit of the wheaty bite to it, but then the rest of the beer is actually quite light and quite smooth. But I like this. I think this is good, and it's a change of pace from the other New England hazies that I've had in recent times. So it gets a thumbs up from me. Let me just put the rest of the can into the glass and we'll enjoy that there. No sediment visible on the bottom of the can, incidentally, which I was wondering about when this one first poured, but you can see that it's definitely gotten a little bit more opaque as we put the rest of it in. But solid beer, this one from Magpie, but very light and very kind of drinkable. And I remember that about the Magpie beers, that they were quite light and drinkable, and you can see I wonder if Magpie, they're trying to encourage more people to get into drinking craft beer. I think these guys are one of the larger by volume craft breweries in Korea, so yeah, these guys are very much encouraging people to get into drinking beer. So that is maybe why the mouthfeel on a number of their beers feels a little bit lighter, but they're still, they're still packed with flavour, definitely. That's one of the easiest drinking 7%ers I've had in a wee while, actually, so thumbs up to them for that. But yeah, this is a really nicely done New England IPA for sure. Let's break the flavour down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth then, as we always do. So, the backbone of the beer, you've got this lovely, smooth, fresh, white bready bread crust in there, kind of like a hedgehog roll. So yeah, you can feel that in this beer. That's the backbone. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a nice little touch of woodiness in there, which I think is great. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, a little bit of woodiness. On top of that, you get some nice Jacob's cream cracker character coming out of this one. You get a wee bit more of that into the aftertaste, I would say. So again, that's something that I quite like about this particular beer. So on the malty side of things, then above that kind of crackery character, you start to get the bready notes coming out of the beer, which I think are very, very nice. So yeah, for me, the bready character that you get out of this one gets sweeter and sweeter the further into this beer that you go. So you can feel there is quite a, I want to say there might be a slight layer of a sweet brown bread in there first off, but then yeah, you get a more airy and still quite sweet white bready character lingering above that, or coming out above that I should say. And then you get this layer of wheat, and the wheat has a little bit of bite to it, I would say. So yeah, you've got that nice little bit of a wheaty, bitey layer to this beer, which I find really interesting actually. I do like that with this one. But yeah, on top of it, the wheat is interesting because it feels a little bit smoother the further forward on the palate that you go. But then yeah, the further back you go, it gets a little bit of bite to it. But I would say it's not got the most aggressive bite to it, this one. But wheat is different in different parts of the world. European wheat is a little bit bitier than the American wheat, which is that wee bit smoother, I would say. And I think Australian wheat's probably going to be different as well. And I'm guessing it'll be one of these regions that it's been imported from. So yeah, really interesting stuff. But yeah, the wheaty character in this one's quite interesting, and that lingers there into the aftertaste, and it sort of densifies out the bready character, which I like. But above the wheaty note, you can feel a little bit of oatiness. As you go down that middle line of your palate, you can feel the nice oaty creaminess, and this beer I think is fairly fresh actually. But as you move out from that central line of your palate, it gives you a wee bit more of it gives you a little bit more of kind of oaty dryness there, which is nice. But in the dead centre of your palate, you've got that little bit of kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, and that's the alcohol coming out of the beer, of course. But then you feel that nice little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuity character coming out of this one too. So yeah, that's really nice. That is very, very nice in this beer. But yeah, I do like how that how all of that pieces together in this one. I think that covers the middle third of the palate, to be honest with you. But yeah, you get a wee bit more of the wheaty bitiness the more that you drink of this beer for sure. Yeah. So let's go to the back third of your palate then, because I think that's quite interesting, this beer as well. So as I've often said, you get sweeter flavours further forward on the palate and more dry and bitter flavours further back. And generally speaking, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there, brown bread in the base, white bread on top, and then you've got a nice wee bit of a wheaty bitey character. But the base of that back third of your palate, you've got a really nice kind of slightly drier bread crusty character coming out of this one. Then you've got the kind of a little bit of the kind of crackery note in there as well, and then above that you have a little bit of, I would say, you get the brown bready character when that layer feels a little bit lighter and more airy and a bit dry, but still has a bit of that residual sweetness to it, which I find quite nice. Then above that you've got the white bready character coming out of the beer, and that's, again, it's a little bit drier, but it still maintains that wee bit of sweetness that you'd expect too, and then some of the wheaty, bitey characters come out of this one, just on top of that actually. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think is very, very nice in this one. So yeah, you can certainly feel those flavours on the malty flavours on that back third of your palate are certainly taller. So I like that. Yeah, on top of everything else on the back third of your palate, then you certainly get a little bit of you absolutely get a little bit of kind of yeasty character coming out of the beer. So for me, the yeasty character in the dead centre of that, you've got a bit of a sweeter brown bready character. Yeah, so you've got a little bit of a sweeter brown bready character in this one. Yeah, sweeter brown bready character in the middle of it. Then as you move further out from the centre of that yeasty note, it's a little bit more kind of white bready, I would say, and then around the edge of it, it feels a little bit more kind of crackery and bread crusty. So all of that sits on top of the wheaty notes I was talking about on that back third of the palate. But yeah, definitely, you can feel the flavour of the beer on the back third of the palate. It's definitely taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way all of that just pieces together, I think, is very, very nice. Yeah, it's good stuff. So I think we can move on to the hoppy side of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward on the green component on the sides of your palate, you get a little touch of herbal character, and as you move further forward toward the front corners of your palate, it's definitely brighter and more floral and aromatic for sure. But yeah, round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is lighter and more grassy, I would say. And then there's a wee touch of zestiness to it as well, but the green component feels fairly wet in this beer, to be quite honest with you, but I like how this one just goes together. It's lovely. So yeah, good stuff on the green component actually, but you know, it is to be expected. Front third of your palate then, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and then just a wee bit of wheaty bitiness at the very top. Base of that front third of your palate, you've got a nice kind of wholemeal, you've got a nice little bit of the bread crusty character in there. Then you've got a bit of the cracker, the wholemeal brown bread, the white bread, and the wheat. And then you can feel that nice oily bubble where the fruity esters roll the way out of the beer in there as well. So let's look at that. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this beer, I would say, is the fruity side of this beer is kind of as we described in the aroma. At the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of like a sharper peach or something in there. And I think the more I drink this one, I think there is potentially a wee bit of citron here. So yeah, a little bit of a sharper peach out of this one. As you move further forward from that very ripe, juicy mangoes, and as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, you start to get some of the softer tropical fruits, like a little bit of apricot, maybe a bit of passion fruit, papaya, stuff like that. But yeah, the front third of the palate's a bit different in this one. It's interesting because I do feel that there's a little bit more of an orangey character coming out of this one in the flavour, where I was picking up more of a kind of Nelson Sauvin white green grapey type note to the beer earlier. But yeah, it does have a little bit of that almost gooseberry type character to it, but as I say, a bit of a juicier orangey note above that. But it's a bit different. I mean, it's a little bit different. Could it be like Pacifica or something? But yeah, the base of that front half of the front third of your palate, yeah, a little bit of that, you know, white green grapey character in there, a little bit of a limey, juicy note as well at the front. But yeah, quite a wee bit of a more juicy, bright, orangey character. So yeah, I'd be very curious to know what hops have been used in this one. But whatever combination it is, I think the fruity side of this beer is pretty interesting, and it's really nice actually. So this one certainly gets a big thumbs up from me. I think this is a really nicely done IPA, and it's a change of pace compared to a lot of the things that I've had in recent times actually. So yeah, good stuff, very good stuff. So in terms of the in terms of the flavour profile, I think we said everything we really need to be honest with you. It's nice, I like this one. Yeah, so let's round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. Like I said earlier, for me, it's one of the lighter and more drinkable New England IPAs that I've had in recent times, but I do have to remember that most of the New Englands I've been drinking these days have been doubles and triples, just because, you know, it's a bang for your buck thing here in Hong Kong. You pay more for beer because it's a kind of premium product. So I tend to pick the heavier ones because they're pretty much the same price as the paleos and IPAs and stuff like this. But yeah, the character you get out of this beer, I think, is really nice. So yeah, mid-bodied, carbonation is quite smooth in this one. It feels quite clean, this beer. IBU wise, I think it's a fairly standard, like 25 or 30 IBU. It gives you a little bit more bitterness into the aftertaste, but yeah, 25 or 30 IBUs would just stand for the style. The malt base has a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, wee bit of creaminess and smoothness and sweetness on top. And then yeah, you've got lovely juicy fruity character to this one, which I think is really nice. Mix of tropical fruit in this one. I think it's a bit more orangey into the aftertaste though. But all in all, I think this has been a really nice beer, and certainly a very nice return to Magpie Brewing Company as well. I need to see if any of the other beers are still around, in fact. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been very interesting to try. So yeah, this was the Evil Eyes. Is that it? Evil Eyes. A 7% hazy IPA from Magpie Brewing in Donghocheong Village on Jeju Island in South Korea. Definitely need to go and visit these guys and film an out and about video at that brewery. That would be very nice. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Magpie Brewing Company as well, and we will return to these guys at some point in the very near future of that, I'm sure. But till then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao just now. Gambe.